What's up everybody, my name is Kiefer and welcome back to Wuthering Waves. 1.1 is finally here, and so tonight we have the in-depth guide for the Madam Magistrate herself, Jinhsi, where we will be going over her kit, how you should build her, and who to run her with to get those massive bursts of damage.
Evil be cleansed.
Starting off with her kit, if you've only read the description of how it works, it can be a little bit convoluted, but it's actually fairly straightforward. Jinhsi has a standard basic attack sequence of 4 attacks, which altogether act like a mini Jiyan kit. Her first attack is a fast swipe, which is very good for reacting to parries, followed up by a long blade spinning animation that has a little bit of range, into a mini Jiyan ult with a little bit of crowd control, and finally a plunge which will slam everything down with the dragon. She has a resonance skill which unlocks her 3 enhanced forms, and her ult which calls down a dragon to deal a huge burst of damage. Now Jinhsi's basic attack is cool, especially with the grouping mechanics of the final strike in the sequence, but the animations are long and slow, and this is Jinhsi's weakest form. When you use her resonance skill in her standard form, Jinhsi will dash forward dealing spectral damage. However, once you do 4 basic attacks or use her intro skill, your resonance skill will glow, meaning that you have access to her first enhanced skill, putting Jinhsi in her incarnation state. While in her incarnation state, Jinhsi will float in the air where she has a new sequence of basic attacks with her sword that can now attack enemies at a pretty significant range. Additionally, while in this state, Jinhsi has unlimited dodges and her animations become much easier to manage, giving you some leeway for misclicks. It's important to note that while in this state, all of Jinhsi's basic attacks count as resonance skill damage, not basic attack damage. Doing 4 basic attacks after entering incarnation state will also give you access to Jinhsi's final skill, which is similar to her ult, however the damage scales off of your forte meter and has the highest multiplier in the game. Jinhsi's forte is where things get a little bit complicated. Jinhsi's meter is filled by incandescent stacks, and she gains 1 stack every time somebody in the team does attribute damage up to 50 stacks total. 1 stack can be gained every 3 seconds, however each element has a separate cooldown, so if you deal damage with Verena to gain 1 stack and then switch to Jiyan, you would get a 2nd stack without needing to wait for the 3-second cooldown. Additionally, any instances of coordinated attack damage will give Jinhsi 2 extra stacks of incandescence, which is where a majority of her synergies stem from. It is also worth noting that after using her outro skill, the cooldown to gain stacks for an element is reduced from 3 to 1 seconds for 15 seconds. In other words, you can gain a stack once every second. It's important to note that Jinhsi's base skill does very minimal damage with only an 155% multiplier, which increases all the way to 200 when she is entering her enhanced state, and all the way to 500 when she uses her skill in her enhanced state. For her final skill, the Dragon Laser, its multiplier is a pretty hefty 470 with 0 incandescent stacks, and a staggering 2,225 at 50 stacks. Specifically, each stack is a 44.5% increase, and with 50 stacks it totals to 2,225%. It's also important to use your laser on every rotation, regardless of whether or not your forte meter is full. Obviously, it's ideal to have it filled before you use your laser, but the damage output is still higher to use it every rotation rather than waiting for it to be full. Because her primary damage comes from the Dragon Laser at the end of her skill enhancements, and the damage it does scales with how charged her forte meter is, her best in-slot team is going to be Jiyan and Mortefi, as they have the best off-field damage to build up Jinhsi's meter. If you don't like playing without a healer, you can replace Mortefi with Verena, who also does coordinated attack damage. If you're like me and Jiyan and Verena are 2 of the only 3 characters that you don't have on your account, you have a few other options that I've been testing out. You have 3 other sources of off-field damage. Mortefi, Jiyan, and Yuanwu, as well as 2 options for support in Taochi, who provides a pretty substantial boost to resonance skill damage, which is where a majority of Jinxi's damage comes from, as well as a shield, and Baizhi, who gives an overall 15% damage deepen, as well as a pretty good healing output. Furina's biggest strength in Jinshi comps is that she is a support, but also does off-field damage to build up Jinshi's meter. If you're comfortable playing without a support, then running a team with 2 coordinated attackers will be your highest damage output, with Jinshi, Yuanwu, and Mortefi probably being your second best team comp after Jinshi, Yinlin, and Mortefi. If you're not confident enough to play without a support, then Yuanwu and Taochi will be your third best option, with Yuanwu and Baizhi coming in a little bit behind them, but with the benefit of having Baizhi's healing. An honorable mention I'd like to make would be Jinshi, Jiyan, and Mortefi, who have been my primary overworld team this patch. It's very clunky rotations and probably has a worse damage output than the second or maybe even the third best team, but it's been a lot of fun to play. You can start off with Jinshi, use her outro skill into Mortefi for his ult, and then use his outro skill into Jiyan for his ult. And then once you finish the duration of Jiyan's ult, use his outro into Jinshi for his 2 off-field attacks, and then use Jinshi's full rotation. If you have your Mortefi and Jiyan built with enough ER to ult every rotation, the combo of Jiyan and Mortefi's ults after Jinshi's outro skill will build Jinshi's meter insanely fast, as, unlike the other resonators, her outro skill effect lasts through swaps. I don't know how much merit dual DPS teams are going to have in this game, and I haven't tried this comp out in TOA yet, but it is more than good enough to clear the overworld content and has been my favorite comp to play so far. Moving on to Echoes, you'll want to run the Celestial Light Sonata set for the 10% Spectro damage bonus and the additional 30% after using an intro skill, with a brand new Jue as your 4 cost, with either crit rate or crit damage depending on which weapon you are using for her. Jue's active ability does not require a transformation, making it probably the strongest echo in the game, especially for Spectro characters. Morning Aches can work, but Jue is more or less necessary in order to run Jinshi properly. For her 3 cost, you'll want one of them to have a Spectro damage bonus main stat, but for the second you can either run another Spectro damage bonus or an attack percentage bonus, as Jinshi's full build is so stacked with Spectro damage bonus that a second main stat is almost unnecessary, so prioritize whichever has the better substats. It is worth noting that using an energy regen 3 cost with really good substats is also viable as well, as if you can get Jinshi to 135-140 energy recharge, you'll be able to ult every rotation. For Jinshi's substats, you're going to want to focus on crit rate and damage, resonance skill damage bonus, energy regen, and attack percent. Jinshi's best in slot weapon is obviously her signature, the Ages of Harvest, as it has a crit rate stat, gives a 48% resonance skill damage bonus, as well as a 12% attribute damage bonus. Her second best will be the Verdant Summit, as it provides a 48% crit damage bonus, followed by either Autumn Trace from the Battle Pass for its 20% crit rate and attack damage bonus, or Lustrous Razor with its energy regen and resonance liberation damage bonus. Jinshi's basic combo is fairly long, but pretty simple to execute, and the difficulty in playing her comes from her long animations, which will result in you being punished if you're button mashing. Jinshi's basic combo is as follows: her intro skill, followed up by using Jue during the plunge, then her ult. If you didn't have her intro skill, then use 4 basic attacks here. Into her resonance skill, which you can animation cancel by using the skill again, then 4 more basic attacks, into her final skill, and then her outro. One of the strongest elements of Jinshi's kit is that if you dodge or swap to another character, it will not reset her rotation, allowing you to continue dealing damage in her enhanced state. If you're looking for the truly min-maxed version of her rotation, it would look like this. 4 basic attacks followed by a skill, which you can animation cancel with her ult, then 3 basic attacks into Jue, then your enhanced skill, 1 more basic attack, and then your final dragon laser skill. Jinxi's Forte circuit is the most important as it buffs all of her enhanced attacks, which is a majority of her damage. After that, you want to level her ult for its burst damage, and then you want to prioritize her intro skill as it makes her regular basic attack and skill pointless, placing those two as the least important. It is also important to note that all of Jinxi's sequence chain is worth it to level, outside of maybe the basic attack and skill, as her passives give her another 20% spectro damage bonus and increase the damage multiplier of her intro skill by 50%. The side nodes will give a total of 12% attack damage bonus and 6% spectro damage bonus, totaling out to about the same benefit as a 3-cost Echo. In total, to completely max out Jinshi's skills, you'll need 20 million credits, 26 Sentinel Daggers, 67 gold Wave-worn residue, 55 purple Wave-worn residue, 28 blue Wave-worn residue, and 25 green Wave-worn residue. You will also need 57 of the gold Howler cores, 40 of the purple Howler cores, 28 of the blue, and 25 of the green. Who came up with these naming systems? And finally, for our whales, we will be going over our dupes or sequence nodes in this game. At D1, Jinshi's basic attack sequence will charge her skill by 20% for each attack. That means each rotation, when you use your skill after 4 basic attacks, it will have an additional 80% damage bonus. At D2, Jinshi gets a full Forte meter after being out of combat for 4 seconds. Note that this only applies to your entire team being out of combat for 4 seconds, not just Jinshi. At D3, Jinshi receives a 25% attack damage bonus after using her intro skill, stacking up to 2 times. At D4, the whole team gets a 20% damage bonus for 20 seconds after using her skill in her enhanced form. At D5, her ult gains 120% damage multiplier, and at D6, her dragon laser in her skill receives an even larger multiplier boost than her ult. Overall, Jinshi is my favorite character in the game. I've been waiting for her since the game dropped. I was so happy when I pulled her, and she has such a high damage output and can literally annihilate an entire boss health bar in one burst. Let me know down below what you think of Jinshi, what your highest damage bursts are. Make sure you check out the second channel for the Let's Plays and the streams, and as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more. I will see you next time.